Allen Lund Company has new offices in Ogden, Utah and Indianapolis, Indiana. Check allenlund.com to reach them.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Scott Thompson.
Happy Friday. Welcome to the show. We'll do a deep dive on a few issues today, starting with the news of the day here in just a moment, followed by a conversation about a new federal probe into Tesla's full self-driving technology. Attorney and safety expert Amy Witherite supports more oversight, but worries that the horse has already left the barn. She's going to map out the possible paths forward when it comes to autonomous vehicles. And speaking of NHTSA, the agency has also begun to examine the way in which states collect crash data. There's a lack of uniformity right now, and while that may not sound like a big deal, the end result could factor into the decision-making process for things like side underride guards and more. Jamie Jones and Mark Schirmer of Landline Magazine join us to break that down. And finally, Marty Ellis has noticed something of late, something that is probably a sign of a significant shift in the trucking industry. More and more used trucks are showing up for sale. We'll discuss that and some observations about cashless tolling with the man who drives the spirit of the American trucker. So we've got a full show ahead of us today. But first, the news with Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Scott. This week, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration highlighted how millions of dollars through grant programs have and will be used to enhance roadway safety. At a press conference in Tucson, Arizona on Thursday, Vin White, who is the Deputy Administrator of FMCSA, spoke about how the investment from the bipartisan infrastructure law has been a benefit.
From investments and safety programs at FMCSA to infrastructure dollars that are already helping build and repair bridges and other roadways to help people and goods move across the country. The U.S. Department of Transportation is working tirelessly with agencies, colleges, advocates, and community leaders to strengthen our system. Our mission at FMCSA is to reduce crashes, injuries, and fatalities involving large trucks and buses. This is a big mission, and we cannot do it alone. That's why at every level we are partnering with government across the commercial motor vehicle industry, with academia and others to get the work done. Critical to this work is having a pool of well-qualified and well-trained truck drivers who collectively move more than 72% of the freight across our country every single day. This makes truck drivers the real backbone of the nation's economy and a critical part of the health of our supply chain.
White says FMCSA is overseeing the Commercial Motor Vehicle Operator Safety Training Program, which he hopes will make CDL testing more accessible.
This grant helps training programs like the one here at Pima County Community College give access to commercial driver license training in communities across the country. These grants allow CDL training programs to offer tuition-free access to CDL training with a priority going to former members of the U.S. Armed Forces, including National Guard members, reservists, and certainly family members. These grants also place a priority on training individuals from rural places, in Indian country, and from underserved communities. Giving back is important. We are proud that Pima County Community College will use this grant to recruit and enroll local students who will then be giving back to their own communities.
White says they want to try and break down some of the barriers of getting into the trucking industry. A few exemptions to tell you about. This week, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration published 3 notices in the Federal Register announcing that the agency was renewing exemptions to existing regulations. Those notices included the agency's final decision to exempt car haulers driving Stinger-steered transporter equipment from having to place warning flags on overhanging loads. The exemption was requested jointly by the Automobile Carriers Conference of the American Trucking Associations and the Auto Haulers Association of America. FMCSA first granted the exemption in 2019. Now the exemption will run through February 15th of 2029. That exemption included several conditions. To see a list of those, you can visit our website at landline.media. In addition to the auto hauler exemption, the agency granted a limited hours of service exemption to West Rock and a cargo securement exemption to the Agricultural and Food Transporters Conference. A wrong-way detection corridor was unveiled this week in Northeast Ohio. Work on the $3.2 million project began in spring of 2023 and was completed this month. The system was constructed at 25 exit ramps on I-71 and I-90 between West 154th Street and East 140th Street. Ohio's District 12 Public Information Officer Brent Kovacs explained to Fox 8 News how the wrong-way detection works.
The way that these systems work, there's a series of signs, flashing lights, and cameras.
If a driver enters the interstate the wrong way, white flashing LED lights will activate on wrong-way signs, and a camera system will begin to capture footage.
That video footage is sent down to our traffic management center in Columbus. They review that footage to see if the motorist, one, turned around or if they continued to go the wrong way. If they continue to go the wrong way, they will dispatch police.
The goal is to decrease the time it takes to get a wrong-way driver turned around and going in the right direction. Meanwhile, $63 million was announced this week for projects in Ohio to improve roadway safety. This funding will go to support the construction of a dozen roundabouts and the installation of several cable barriers. Also this week, Governor Mike DeWine and the Ohio Department of Transportation announced more than $12 million to go towards fixing or replacing aging bridges. The projects include full replacement of 4 bridges and repairs on 4 others. Red light camera programs have been extended across New York City, and new programs are being established in the Hudson Valley area. This week, Governor Kathy Hochul signed legislation that will see the largest expansion of the red light camera program in New York City. The number of red light cameras will go from 150 in the city to 600.
When there's a camera, drivers know about it. They're less likely to dart through, try to get through a red light, and that means they're less likely to hurt or kill someone in a vehicle or on the street.
The plan is for the cameras to be installed on intersections that have a history of infractions. 2 new Love's travel stops have opened in Kansas and Mississippi. Today, Love's announced one of its largest stores to date has opened its doors off Interstate 35 in Wichita, Kansas. This spot has 122 truck parking spaces, 99 full-size, and 23 bobtail spots. Hattiesburg, Mississippi now has a Love's off Interstate 59 and Highway 98. This location offers 84 truck parking spaces along with other amenities. With these 2 new locations, Love's has surpassed 650 stores in total. Apple users in Iowa now have no excuses not to have their license on them. This week, the Iowa Department of Transportation announced that people in Iowa can now add their driver's license or ID to their Apple Wallet. According to Iowa DOT, IDs in Apple Wallet use the privacy and security features that are built into Apple devices to help protect a user's identity and personal information. When adding an ID to Apple Wallet, the Iowa Department of Transportation receives only the information it needs to approve or deny the request. And finally, a library in New Jersey has a book back on its shelves 101 years after it was checked out. UPI reports that a copy of William Shakespeare's Life of King Henry V was returned to the Paterson Public Library after a woman who was sorting through her grandmother's possessions found it. It had been checked out in 1923. The library director said it's never too late to return a book. This book was also a limited edition, making it highly valued by collectors. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Ashley. For updates on these stories and more from the trucking industry 24/7, check out our website, landline.media. From reporting and opinion pieces to pretty much anything in between, check it all out at landline.media. When we come back, we'll be joined by attorney and safety expert Amy Witherite for a talk about NHTSA's new investigation into Tesla's full self-driving technology following a handful of new crashes. She views the probe as a positive step, but worries it might all be too little too late. So stay with us. That's all coming right up, right here on Landline Now, right after this.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
At TruckStop, we've built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on TruckStop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
You've heard us report recently on NHTSA's new probe into Tesla's full self-driving technology following a handful of crashes. Our next guest has some insights. Amy Witherite is an attorney, a traffic safety expert, and now a guest here on Landline Now. Amy, thanks for joining us.
Oh, Scott, thanks so much for having me.
We've got a lot of ground to cover here, and I want to start by kind of going over your background with this issue in particular. As I mentioned there, you're an attorney. It sounds like you've been dealing with crashes involving autonomous or self-driving vehicles. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience, how often you're dealing with cases like this, and what you're seeing out there?
Yeah, we're seeing these cases twofold. First off, we have a number of Tesla cases, some of which are using an autonomous or self-driving function, some of which do not. And I also live in a state which is a testing ground for big trucks using autonomous software. So whether it's Waymo or robotics, those are driving each and every day from Dallas down to Houston or across our great state all the way over to Villa Rica, Georgia. And so we are very concerned about this new technology that we firmly believe is not yet proven nor safe when we have really good qualified truck drivers out on the road every day.
You mentioned Texas there, and I think that's interesting because, as you kind of point out, the rules, regulations there surrounding autonomous vehicles is pretty lax, pretty open right now, right?
There are none. It's not open. There are zero.
That is very lax, yeah. And obviously, I know that the idea with the state there is to, help these businesses grow and develop the technology there in this business. But are you seeing direct problems on the roadways there? We see the headlines all the time about crashes in California and elsewhere. What kinds of things are you seeing? Are you seeing red flags that make you go, we really need to take another look at this right now?
Yeah, we sure are. I mean, there's just too many opportunities with an 80,000-pound vehicle for something to go awry, especially if the weather isn't perfect. So all these tests done on these big trucks, and quite frankly, on a Tesla self-driving or a Chevy Cruze or the taxi cabs, they're all tested under perfect weather conditions. And as you and your listeners know, that's not the real world. There's all kinds of, whether it's rain or snow or other adverse conditions that have to be adjusted for. And none of this technology has truly been tested under those circumstances. And yet, all of us out on our roadways, whether you're in Texas or Arizona, New Mexico, Georgia, we're all now guinea pigs to see if this technology can hold up, whether you're using cameras or lasers to try and guide these trucks and cars across our major freeways.
You talked about the complete lack of regulation there in Texas. Federal regulators, too, have been kind of slow, I think that's safe to say, to jump in here and do something about all of this. As I mentioned off the top, NHTSA has opened up this investigation. There are a number of them now with regard to these autonomous vehicles now. But again, federal regulators have been pretty slow about jumping in here. Do you get a sense about why that is? And I guess maybe more to that point, what should they be doing, do you think, to help make sure that everybody is going to be safe out there?
Well, it certainly would be helpful if on a federal level they would put in place some criteria and safeguards that would apply to all 50 states. So we're not governed by one state does this and another state does something different. But we're also talking about huge profits, huge potential profits, whether you're a big trucking company or whether you're Chrysler doing their Chevy Cruze or Tesla. We're talking about billions of dollars in profits, and that always creates pressure on regulators, whether it's the federal government or state and local government, to put in place just precautionary measures for the rest of us. And I think that's why we're not seeing a more aggressive stance. And quite frankly, Scott, this will sound really harsh, but there haven't been an enormous amount of people who have died. And I think what drives regulation are people and families suffering. And when you have a big enough density of that, suddenly regulators come in and go, oh, my God, this is a problem. We've got to fix it. And we are growing in the number of trucks and cars out there that are in a self-driving mode, but it is not overwhelming our freeways yet. So let's not wait till people die to then put in the safety precautions that we really needed on day one.
I get the sense, and I feel this way, I'm not going to put words into your mouth here, but it certainly feels like it is just a matter of time until we have something like that happen. If and when that does happen, and of course we don't want that to happen, but it does feel like it's going to, what's the reaction going to be then? Do you feel like there is going to be a reaction to this then? And at that point, will it be too little too late?
Well, it'll be too little too late for that particular family.
Right. Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. And I think we've seen that over time. I mean, I'm going to date myself a little bit. If you go back to like the Ford Pinto, if you go back to other manufacturing defects, I mean, we have seat belts because people were dying because of crashes and the cars didn't put in seat belts. And so eventually there'll be enough inertia to put in the safety precautions. It would just be nice if we could learn from history and get the safety precautions in first to protect the public, and then let's vet the rest of the technology and see if it really can help. And this may sound a bit odd, but it may help truckers and it may help the rest of the public out there on the roadway sharing our highways and streets with truckers.
This NHTSA probe that we're seeing now, do you have any faith that it's going to lead to any changes? I mean, what do you expect to come of it?
Well, I think it could lead to changes, but I do think it's going to be slow. It's like so many things, even in my profession in the law, we seem to run behind what's really going on day to day. And NHTSA is no different. They're now chasing a problem. And so it's going to take some time to get their arms around it, review all the data, if they can even get it. Because, again, the data is proprietary, whether it's the software, whether it's the cameras and the lasers and how everything works together. No company is going to voluntarily give that up, Scott. And so NHTSA is going to struggle to get the information to then learn what needs to be done to make us safer. And it's just going to be too slow. And it's a matter of how many people are going to suffer in the interim.
The problem I see with all of this is that this freight train is already moving down the tracks, and because there hasn't been much action by way of, reining it in a little bit and hitting the brakes a little bit here, so to speak, it's going to be even harder, I guess, as we go down the tracks there to pull it back, I think. It does feel like it may be too little too late. However, that being said, we are where we are right now, obviously. If you were in charge here, or if you had the ear of somebody who could do something about all of this, what would you do or have that person do to make sure that we've got some safeguards in place?
Well, I'll say two things to that. First off, you're absolutely correct. It's impossible to get the toothpaste back in the tube. It's out. So now what are we going to do about it? I think there are a lot of options. And first and foremost, if you want to pursue a self-driving vehicle, and now, I don't know if you saw it just the other day, we've got approval from the FAA for flying cars. If you want to pursue this kind of technology, you got to put a human being still in the driver's seat as a safety precaution. And you've got to quit allowing companies like Tesla to advertise that this is a full autopilot. Full autopilot to me sounds like we're in the West world, and when I'm jumping in a car and I'm talking to whoever and the car drives itself and you don't have to pay attention. We saw that, again, dating myself a bit, with Tom Cruise in Minority Report.
Yep.
Hollywood tells us we don't need to pay attention in a fully automated vehicle. And I think the public has the wrong perception these vehicles can function without a human being behind the wheel paying attention. So that's first and foremost. And then I think there are other options especially in the trucking industry and even in the taxi cab too. We have drone airplanes. We've had those aircrafts forever, but yet there are still pilots piloting the drones. You could take, if you want to do self-driving trucks and taxis, you could have a whole room of folks that are qualified truck drivers that are driving them remotely, and we still have the human component, but we don't have them sitting in the seat of the vehicle. If you think that's a more efficient way to move billions of dollars worth of merchandise and goods across our country.
I certainly, when it comes to autonomous semis, I am less worried about it. I think it's going to be a long while before we get there. I think all the kinks are going to have to be worked out. And obviously, when you're talking about just the size and weight of a vehicle like that with nobody on board, that raises all sorts of other safety concerns.
Agreed.
With regard to autonomous trucks, do you feel like it's a different category that maybe is going to be a bit farther down the line? What are your thoughts about where we may be headed there?
I sure hope so, because you hit the nail on the head. You can't have an 80,000-pound vehicle completely unsupervised with unproven technology on our roadways, because people for sure are going to die. There's just no doubt. And then number two, you've got other issues that if you did have adverse weather and no human being in the truck, what are these trucks just going to stop on the highway? Where are they going to go if they can't function? They're just going to back up all of I-45 and all of I-20 or I-10 across the country. They'll just be lined up because you have a snowstorm or bad weather or rain. So you've got that component. And then, oh, hell, I lost track of what I was saying. I forgot your question.
That's
when you know That's when you know you're talking too much as a witness, is when you forget the lawyer's question.
I got you right where I want you, then, Amy. And I think what you're saying, just wraps into the entire conversation that we're having here, because there's so many unknowns, and I know the testing's going on, and these companies will tell you that, hey, these are going to be safer than human drivers down the line because they're not going to be distracted, and they'll know exactly how to react to this situation and that, and they can do it in a moment's notice faster than a human can. And maybe we're going to get there. And maybe that's, maybe everything will come true as they say it is. But however, right now, the concerns are so big and overwhelming that it's bringing out a lot of apprehension, I think rightfully so. My question as we look ahead here, and we don't have a whole lot of time, probably about a minute or so, but if you were to look forward to the next, few years, maybe a decade out, where are we headed here? How prevalent are autonomous vehicles going to be? And kind of how do you see this playing out, I suppose, is my question.
Yeah, I think you're spot on in terms of a slower rollout with the bigger, larger vehicles like 18-wheelers. Even though we have Waymo and robotics here in Texas saying they're taking drivers out of the driver's seat by the end of 2024, I just don't think it's really going to be feasible to safely operate. So I think across our country, 18-wheelers are going to be slower. And we've already seen in places like California, NHTSA and the state have pulled the Chevy Cruzes off. Tesla's not ready to go. I think it's a slower rollout, but people are just excited because it looks like a shiny new penny. But it's not good for safety. It's not good for truck drivers. It's not good for our families.
Yeah. Let me go on the record and say I am in favor of flying cars. I watched the Jetsons, and I've been waiting, so I'm looking forward to that, although I want to make sure that they're safe before we do that for sure. It certainly does feel like the Wild West out there, Amy, but we appreciate having someone like you keeping an eye on things. So again, thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me on.
Our thanks to Amy Witherite for her time. We mentioned the NHTSA investigation several times there. It was prompted by 4 crashes, all of which happened within the past year. NHTSA will specifically look into the full self-driving feature's ability to respond to reduced roadway visibility conditions. The full self-driving feature started being offered in model year 2016 Tesla vehicles. The NHTSA investigation could affect more than 2.4 million vehicles. We'll take a break, but Landline Now is back right after this.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Capital Reman, the leader in remanufactured diesel engines and components, has partnered with OOIDA to offer exclusive member benefits. Visit capitalreman.com today to support America's transportation industry and take advantage of your benefits.
When it's time to overhaul your truck engine, help protect it by insisting on a genuine Vibertech TVD crankshaft damper. Heavy duty, absolute premium quality, and they're made right here in the USA. Find a dealer at vibertechtvd.com.
Welcome back to the show. There's a new development out of NHTSA that went a bit under the radar this month, and depending on how it shakes out, it could have big implications. We'll get into that with our next two guests, along with a number of exemption requests that have now been granted. Let's welcome in Jamie Jones and Mark Schrimmer of Landline Magazine. Mark, Jamie, good to see you.
Hey, it's good to see you, Scott.
Yeah, it's okay to see you.
I appreciate the honesty. Let's jump right in with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. They are taking a look at crash data at the state level, started looking into how states are doing that in particular. I want to start with the what and the why here, Mark. We're going to talk about the what this means here in a moment, but what exactly is NHTSA looking for, and I suppose why are they looking for it in the first place?
Yeah, so basically they're wanting some more information on the property damage only crashes, and that basically there's a lack of uniformity based off states, sometimes counties, and so they're trying to get more information about how each jurisdiction goes about getting this information, putting out there, so that this data can actually mean something. Is basically the gist of it.
When we see a story about NHTSA examining how states collect crash data, I don't think it's the sexiest headline or the sexiest story. However, it does have possible implications down the line, and it is important that they're looking at this. Jamie, you have been kind of looking into this, and as you point out, the lack of uniformity on the state level does not do us any favors when we're trying to determine, what this crash data means for other things on down the line.
Right.
There's a problem with the way it's done, and it's creating other problems down the line.
100%. This is actually one of those things, and while it's narrow in that they're looking at just the property-only damage reports, this has to happen, and there has to be a concerted effort by the federal government to try and get that uniformity state to state. And, it even gets worse when you have your state highway patrols, then you have your county sheriffs, and then you have your local police departments. Think about the wide variety of those crash reporting forms. Period. You just know that it's a hot mess out there. And so much of what FMCSA does on the regulatory side is trying to reduce crashes and injuries and fatalities and all of that stuff. And when you don't have data that you can actually hang your hat on and know matter-of-factly, not only X number of crashes happened, X number were not the fault of the truck driver until you can get to that level. And frankly, it's still a mess because very few crash reports are going to have fault determined on it because the legal system, due process, and everything if it's a criminal aspect, there's going to be criminal proceedings, in civil court, there's always lawsuits over crashes in civil court. Do those have the weight of a decision when they're assigning percentages of fault and all of that? So, at the end of the day, you have things like a push for side underride guards, and you have no quantifiable data that says who is in fault in those crashes. We can tell you how many side underride crashes there have been. That's collected. We can tell you how many rear-end collisions there are with trucks. We can tell you that stuff, but there's no determination of fault, and that's where it gets really messy.
Or maybe even worse, you've got data from one state saying one thing about it, and then you've got another state saying another thing completely opposite, just based on the information that they have and the way they collect it. it creates confusion out there.
Yeah, and we're talking about underrides as an example. I sat in on a lot of those underride advisory committee meetings, and a big part of the aspect was looking at NHTSA's study and analysis they did that this wouldn't save this many very few lives for the amount of money that was being proposed and all of this, and every pushback was, well, there's underreported. This is underreported, and so this isn't the true stats. Well, when you just have this, hypothetical, it should be larger. It's hard to defend against because you have the data that we actually have that says, no, this probably isn't something we need to move forward on at this point. And then we can just say, because we don't know, then it probably is higher.
Well, and it's, to quote Tom Weekly with the OOIDA Foundation, too many groups that advocate for different things lean on we believe science, if you would. It's that perception is reality. And frankly, I mean, when you start breaking down a lot of these crashes, be it a side underride, be it a rear end or whatever, what do you think actually was the cause of that crash? It was probably distracted driving if we're going to get down to it to begin with. And so, that goes back to a whole different focus of actually training passenger vehicle drivers, and having things that could be in place to help that, the cell phone restrictions, different things that they've put in place around the country. Because I swear I would love for one day one of our members, listeners, readers, whatever, to call in and tell me how many cars they dodged because the passenger driver was distracted.
Yeah. I see it all the time.
It's a full-time job out there just to save your own skin. And it's, but until we can get, uniform crash data at a country level, across the country, there's always going to be that problem. So looking at it has to happen, okay, start with property damage only. I don't care. Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
And I guess,
this is a start.
And I guess the end result here would be some sort of framework, right, that every state would follow when they're doing this, which, as you will both point out here, would give us better data, and by extension would help us understand, what's really going on out there. As you point out, anecdotally, we see what's going on out there, but without the numbers to really back it up, it's hard to make heads or tails of it sometimes. Let's move on here. If you've got a Google alert set up for FMCSA exemptions, like I'm sure Mark Schirmer does, your phone has been blowing up of late. We've had a flurry of notices, Mark. Got a little bit of everything here, and I know you've got some thoughts just about exactly what we're seeing. We've got a number of these exemptions.
I had a theory that Oprah took over FMCSA this week and just
get an exemption.
Did you get a free car?
No, but everybody's getting an exemption.
You get an exemption, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right, Mark. Oprah.
Follow that.
Sure. Oprah. I remember.
Yeah. You're old enough to remember Oprah. Oh, wow.
So I guess we're going to move on to the exemptions.
Yeah.
So, so we had, I think, 3 all Monday of this week published, and it varies from giving an exemption to a company for being able to travel 275 feet across a public road to, that they're exempt from some of the hours of service restrictions because they're really only driving like 5 minutes and then they're doing this. And so there's that exemption. There's one, and I think cargo securement is another one.
Yep.
And it really just, I guess the overall issue is that there's so many regulations out there that, and I think, Jamie's going to elaborate on this, but it's hard to make these kind of one size fits all. And so that's what ends up coming, that we have to spend so much time on these individual exemptions.
Yeah, and I think a good example that you had, or where so many companies are looking at the flashing brake lights or the camera mirrors in place of traditional mirrors and things like that. But when you see this, just really reemphasizes the fact that we do have a problem with the way regulations are approached. And the trucking industry, hours of service is the one place you can start with and say that there has to be more flexibility in that, because these operations are so diverse. It's just not. It's not all interstate long haul trucking.
Yeah. It feels like a one size fits all regulation framework. And as you point out, there are plenty of different ways that people do things out there. And these exemptions that are filed, FMCSA grants a lot of them because they find out that it's not going to affect safety in a negative way, which begs the question, would you be able to make things a bit more flexible for everybody out there? What would that do? FMCSA would obviously have their, concerns about that, but it's a conversation worth having, I would think.
It's one we need to consistently have, and it ties back into the review that they're doing on guidance right now. You really have to understand that there is going to be a time and place, and we're way past it, in my opinion, that FMCSA needs to actually go back through every regulation on the books and start evaluating its need and what it actually accomplishes, because we just keep adding to the pile. And it's gotten to the point that it's a big pile. There's a lot of silly stuff in there that just doesn't make a lot of sense. And when you have to fight the agency for something like blinking taillights that can be activated in a situation to be safer. I mean, we had another situation that the way the regulations are written on the clearance lights on trailers, it has to be one lamp on either side of the trailer and 3 in the middle. And that dates back to the old, like Model T era. They had 1 light for a car, 2 lights for this, and 3 lights for a big truck. And that's held on through all these years. So anybody who has chicken lights at one point was getting tickets because they didn't have that gap.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just one example of a very stupid regulation that's still out there. You can't tell that 8 feet of lights across the top of a trailer means a big truck's in front of you. It's silly.
Yeah. And, kind of piggybacking off of that, we do have another example, right, of an exemption request. We've got a sleeper berth exemption request. The comment period has been extended. Yeah. And this is an example of this one-size-fits-all approach not working for everybody, right?
Yeah. One thing before we get to the sleeper berth, I do want to mention off of the previous, one of the things that, Jamie had mentioned, like the mirror examples, that it kind of frustrates me. We've probably had, maybe close to a dozen individual companies that have had to apply for these exemptions to use cameras instead of the normal side mirror type thing, and they've deemed it to be safe. But they don't just change the regulation. Instead of doing that, they make everybody do this individually, and this has to go through a 30-day comment period, and we're spending government man hours on this. And meanwhile, we got a broker transparency rule that would really help a lot of truckers out there that they've been sitting on. OIDA petitioned them back in 2020, and here it's October, and this is supposed to roll out. It still hasn't.
Any day now, yeah.
And it's just a situation. It's like, if we could maybe not spend so much time on some of this stuff and make the regulations a little more flexible or a little more, tailored specifically to start with, that we could eliminate some of this needless kind of paperwork is what it feels like sometimes.
Well, and, the sleeper berth exemption that you talked about, that you asked about, that's a perfect example because you have team operations and you want to paint them in this one box. But every team operates a little bit differently, and they want that flexibility to split that sleeper berth to fit their needs. When am I, most ready to drive? When am I rested? How much do I need? What works for us the best? And that's why this particular exemption request, I'd love to see a big turnout on it, because that could be a building block for something on down the road to get that sleeper berth provision loosened up on flexibility for individual teams.
Yeah, and that comment period has been extended through November 21st. You can find Mark's story on landline.media for information on how to do that. Mark Schrimmer, I should say. Bro. And Jamie, always good to see you. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
That's a wrap on Mark and Jamie, but you can catch their work anytime, anywhere on our website, landline.media, and, of course, in every issue of Landline magazine itself. Time for a break, but there's more Landline Now right around the corner.
If you're running ultra-low sulfur diesel in your vehicle, make sure you are prepared and protected all winter long with Howes Diesel Treat, the #1 anti-gel product in North America from the 100-plus-year trusted brand Howes Products.
Truckdown.com. Whenever you have a breakdown, you need Truckdown.com. 24/7 access to 40,000 verified heavy-duty repair vendors nationwide. Owner-operators need roadside speed. Truckdown.com.
Firestone tires are for more of everything, with more durability for more miles and more confidence in your fleet. Firestone's tested tires help fleets save with value where it matters most. Learn more at bridgestonenationalfleet.com/4moremiles.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. Every week, we check in with Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, the Spirit of the American Trucker. Marty has noticed something of late, something that is probably a sign of a significant shift in the trucking industry, and that is this. Whether at auction lots, used truck dealers, or even along the side of the road, more and more used trucks are showing up for sale. Meanwhile, he says cashless tolling apparently isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Carolina west to Denver, up to Bangor, west to Austin, coast to coast, sea to sea, sail on, sail on.
Well, Marty, how are you doing?
I am lovely, Mark, and you?
I'm doing great, thank you very much, and we're glad to have you here at the mothership as usual.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure glad to be here.
Now, you've kind of been around a few places lately. What was your last stop that you made?
It was down at the Truckers for Vets truck show in Abilene, Texas. They had about 25 trucks there, and they had of course, the truck show part of it where they gave out some awards. And it was at a very nice location. It was pretty windy and a little bit cool, but overall it was a good time there. So that's always kind of nice to see the families come together for that.
And it sounds like one of those shows that's just kind of starting out small and building up.
It was their first year there, so
wow.
You never know what to expect. It can, you have a whole lot of trucks, or you can have, some, and they definitely had more than others have had their first year, but so they're looking forward to next year.
Okay, and I know you're here this week for the Truck to Success seminar, and I suppose we'll just have to talk to you after it's over about everything that you saw.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's one of the reasons I'm going to be going to the seminar is to just some more real-life, hands-on information. I'm a big fan of it, just with watching some of the Zoom ones from years back and just talking to some of our members that have gone through it. So, I already am a big fan of it, and I like to tell people all about it, but this will just give me a little more in-depth knowledge, so when I do talk to people and they ask more in-depth questions, then I have a better chance of being able to answer them.
Okay, well, fantastic. And let's talk about some of the stuff that's on truckers' minds around here. And a big one, I guess, this week involves trucks for sale. And you mentioned several different ways you're seeing them out there. What's going on with that issue?
Yeah, I've talked to quite a few people that they're seeing the same thing I am. The auction lots, like Ritchie Brothers, but there's other ones. I mean, they're full. And, during COVID time, they were empty. And same thing with truck lots. All the dealerships are full of trucks now. Not just, the first ones they've just recently got out, but I mean, all full of used trucks and some really nice used trucks. I went by one the other day, and it must have had a dozen of the big sleeper ones.
Wow.
Yeah. And those, don't come up that often. And then I'm also seeing, and other people have too, seeing trucks just parked on corners with for sale sign in, or on their property, in front of a highway, with for sale signs, and then actually going down the road or in truck stops, seeing for sale signs in the window of trucks that are actively out hauling loads right now. They're not just parked. They're actively hauling loads, but they're looking to sell their trucks. So it's kind of scary, you think, because if people are really feeling that they need to get out, and of course that has driven the prices of used trucks down. And so if you're getting out, you're not going to get what you would have gotten 2 years ago. But for the guys that are getting in, they're probably going to get a decent deal. So
opportunity.
It's almost like I don't know. It's for every good thing for one person, it's bad for something else, somebody else. At least it seems that way. Like in the winter, it might be bad for the drivers, but the tow truck operators are having a good time.
It's interesting because when you mention the auction houses, to me, that's someone that's getting out of it not so voluntarily.
Right.
Maybe kind of the circumstances have compelled them, which makes me wonder if after this extended period of low rates, if we're finally seeing some of these folks drop out and, if the number of truckers out there shrinks a little bit, will that finally bring some of the rates up?
Yeah, and that's kind of what you have to basically hope for. I mean, it's if we're going to lose people, then hopefully the people that have been able to stay in or are able to stay in, they'll be able to get some advantage later on once the rates start going back up. But yeah, I mean, the company that I used to work for just recently, went out of business, and they, most, not all, most of the equipment is going to be up, at an auction place at some point in time. Some of those things got to be able to get sold for some of the local companies there that knew that, hey, these were newer pieces of equipment. Let's see if I can get those bought for a discounted rate compared to going and buying new.
Well, and I'll be interested to see what happens when all of the equipment from Yellow, because I don't think the equipment part of their business has been fully sold off yet.
Yeah, you're still seeing a lot of their stuff on the auction lots.
Yeah, so that'll create another flood.
Right.
Let's talk about another issue that is near and dear to my heart, which is this whole move to cashless tolling, where either if you got a transponder, you're set, you've already got one, you know how it works. Right. But for folks that don't, they're taking a picture of the license plate in a lot of cases and sending you a bill.
Right.
And you've been noticing the same thing I have.
Absolutely. And I mean, I like, not having to go through toll booths. Don't anybody get me wrong, because I think it keeps the traffic flowing well and, a lot better than having to stop the toll booths. But where I think it's, almost wrong is because I noticed there in Kansas come through, and one of the signs said if you to use K-tag, you'll save 50% on your tolls. It's like, hold it. In other words, you're penalizing the guy that wanted to pay cash to begin with and would have pulled into the toll booth and paid cash. Now you're penalizing them, well, basically double the amount of money, right? I mean, if I'm doing the math right.
More than that, if I'm right.
And so you're getting penalized for wanting to do cash. And I personally think that everybody ought to have to take cash just because that's our currency. Now, I understand the easiness, and a lot of people don't carry cash anymore. They just have a card, a debit card, a credit card. But I think we're missing the boat, and I think we're causing more of this when we are saying, okay, it's okay to not accept cash. This is more like a snowball effect. Now, could I be wrong? Yeah, absolutely. But that's my biggest issue is you're penalizing people that like to pay cash.
Well, and what I noticed, and mind you, I'm talking about driving in a car. This was very recently, but I took a trip on there that's usually about $2.50 each direction, which means $5 for the round trip.
Right.
I got my bill from their new system, and it was $12.50.
Wow.
That's a little bit more. And, of course, with trucks, you've got to magnify that many, many times.
Exactly.
Well, we're almost out of time here, Marty. Real quick, tell us where you're going next.
Hey, we're going to go down to the Louisiana Truck Show in rainy, Louisiana, and that's the 1st through the 3rd. Go online, check them out. I think it's going to be a good time.
Great. Any final words before you ride off into the sunset?
Yeah, guys, just remember, give that guy next to you a break and be kind to one another.
Brothers of the highway, children of the wind.
Once again, that was Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, the Spirit of the American Trucker. You can find Marty's next stop on our show and every day at our website, landlinenow.com. That's our program for today. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.